Welcome back to the next lesson in our computer systems series. This one's about software and specifically user interfaces. We're going to work out today what the difference between a CLI, a GUI and an NLI are. We're going to define the terms of hardware and software and work out the relationship between those two. Explain what is meant by system software and application software. And then try and understand why we need an operating system. And of the functions of the operating system, really going to concentrate on just the one of them, the user interfaces. So key words you're going to hear about today: hardware, software, applications, system software, operating systems, user interfaces, graphical user interfaces, command line interfaces, natural language interfaces. So let's crack on. Have a look at these. What are these? Pause the video, write down the answers, and I'll give you those in a second. Yep, so what we've got here, we've got iris smiley green, finger bread squared, princess R2D2, and race sleep. So what do they have in common? Well, they're all wrong, because that's not what it is, obviously. U, bun, 2, I, O, and that's a dress with a DR missing, so S, I, O, S. That's Princess Anne, so that's Anne droid. And that's Windows. So what do they have in common? They're all operating systems. Before we talk about operating systems, let's talk about the difference between hardware and software. Hardware, you can physically touch. It's the components that make up the computer system. The programs that run on the hardware or that control the hardware is software. That's the idea of things that's called behind the glass, behind the screen, things you can't touch. So hardware, physical parts of the computer system, and software, the programs that run, that use the hardware. Of software, there's two types you need to know about for GCSE, at least in this lesson: system software and application software. System software are programs that do things for the computer. They help with the operation of the computer. They nearly always work with the hardware of the computer. And application software are programs that do things for you, for the user. Think of apps. So if you see, and you will be doing a quiz on this later, if you see a computer program, think about that. Is that doing things for me, or is that doing things for the computer? And that's your general guide. So Microsoft Word, a word processor, is doing things for you. It's a word processor. But a disk defragmenter is doing things for the computer disk drive, is doing things for the computer. So that will be system software. Key terms: application software, everyday programs that we use to create documents and perform tasks, and system software, which controls the operation of hardware in a computer. There are a number of roles performed on the operating system, and we sometimes shorten the word operating system to OS. Now what happens is you turn your computer on, the computer runs a short set of routines just to check if the hardware is working. Once it's happy the hardware is working, it hands over control to the software on the disk, and the software then loads up, which is nearly always, if not always, the operating system, which then controls the programs and manages how you deal with hardware on the computer. If we didn't have the operating system, we wouldn't be able to really use the computer. We wouldn't be able to command the hardware to do anything, and we wouldn't be able to use the software to carry out the task for us. So the operating system is quite important. There's quite a lot of roles. Look at them all here. And in fact, what I'd like you to do now is to pause this video and have a look at each of those. Do a quick Google on each of those. If you've got a good screen and some paper, make a couple of sentences as notes. If your time is limited or you don't have very good connection, have a look at user interfaces. Have a quick Google of that, quick scan through, because that's what we're going to deal with today. So as we said, the operating system allows us to interact with a computer system. The way that a user interacts with the system is through the use of a user interface. It's between the computer and you. It's the interface. And there are three types of user interface you need to know about: graphical user interfaces, command line interfaces, and the new kid on the block, natural language interfaces. Let's do it the most common one first, the GUI, a graphical user interface. Most common type they use to interact with computers. It's made up of windows, icons, menus, if you've got a mouse, pointers, known as a WIMP interface, Windows, Icons, Menu, Pointers. But because a lot of GUIs now are on phones with no mice, and you're tapping on things, it's icons, menus, and windows. And you'll probably use those. I'd be surprised if you didn't, because they're on your smartphones, they're on tablets, they're on computers in schools. You've been using those for quite a while. And here's a picture. Hopefully that jogs a few memories. A GUI comes with helpful guidance because the icons a lot of times are very intuitive. If it's got a clock on it, you probably know it's going to be to do with the time. If it's got the chat symbol, it's going to be to do with chat. An envelope, email. The cog system, settings. You don't need to know any commands to use a graphical user interface. You just click on the icons you want, select the menu options you want to perform the tasks you want. Next kind of user interface is the command line interface. It's another type. It's very text-based. You'll notice there are no icons. There are no menus, though a lot of times you're using these commands inside a GUI, you will have menus. But if it's a pure command line interface, it'll be text-based with no icons, no menus to help you. You'll have to use the program commands yourself to perform the tasks that you want to use. They're old school. They were around before graphical user interfaces, and you still use them today because they're very flexible, they're very powerful. Some tasks you need to do in a GUI are hard to find, which you could just type in one command into command line interface. And sometimes the command you want to do is not even available in your graphical user interface. You've actually got to go into command line. You'll need to have a user who knows how to use those commands. If they don't know those commands, they're not going to be able to do anything. There's not really any help there. One example you might have seen is the one pictured there, the Windows command prompt. So it's part of Windows, a graphical user interface, but you can open up a command box to run some command line tasks. And the way it started, you didn't have any graphics, you just had command lines. Fire up your computer, type in your commands, and that's all you had to go and that's all you had to work with. The third type of user interface is a natural language interface. You will have used these. Here's a clue as a picture. You talk, the interface listens, and then it performs tasks for you. So you're using your natural language to control the device through use of commands that you're speaking. You can use common phrases to interact with the device to do common tasks. You'll have used those. Here's some examples. You've got Alexa at the top, Amazon Alexa, and you've got Google Home at the bottom. Maybe on your phone, if you've got an iPhone user, you've used Siri. Now at the top of the slide there, you can see this was a slide deck I did a few years ago, because I said in practice, natural line interfaces find it difficult to understand some commands. Well, no, not really. They're pretty good now. In fact, they're involved so much that they'll even recognize different users' voices. So if I speak, or my wife speaks, it knows who we are. It could be the way things are going. It could be where interfaces are taking us. And you should have used those. And you know what happens. If you speak a command, it will do something for you. But not only that, sometimes it will make recommendations for you. Or perform physical tasks that you wouldn't normally use on a computer, like turn your lights on and off, dim your lights. Right, well I've talked enough now. Your turn. 4 questions there I want you to have a go at. Just pause the lesson and have a go, write them down. So they write down the key terms that we've seen in this lesson: hardware, software, application and system software, operating systems, the 3 types of user interfaces, GUI, CLI, NLI. Write down a few features of each of those user interfaces, and then question 3 and 4, really just trying to make you think a bit about what you've done today. What user interface would you prefer to use, and why? Why would you use it? Why do you prefer it? And the last one there is, what user interface do you think will be most used in the future? Is it one that you can think of that hasn't been made already, or is it already existing? Which one do you think will be the most used user interface, and why? Once you've done that, off to Edmodo. Another quiz to do. Computer systems, operating system UIs. Have a go at that. If it's no good, or you're not happy with it, or it's too low, let me know and I'll reset it. But I will be keeping an eye on these things anyway. What did we do today's lesson? Well, we did user interfaces, part of computer software, which is part of computer systems, and we just dealt with the 3 user interfaces. What's the difference between a CLI, GUI, and NLI? Well, hopefully you know that now. One, very graphical, one, hardly graphical at all, and the third one, all driven by your voice. You should be able to define the terms hardware and software, understand how they relate to one another. Also the two types of software, system and application. And also one of the functions of the operating system, user interfaces, you should have a good idea of now. Okay, thanks for listening. Cheers.